And I got to tell you, I've been looking at their work for several years now, and it's so impressive. And you see so many of the pictures around the booth from these guys, from the Edmondsons, that it's nothing short of amazing. And so we're going to make a quick transition over. Come up, grab seats. If you have not gotten your Nikon Z t-shirt here in the booth, make sure you stop by the t-shirt cart. Just get scanned, and you get a free t-shirt. Can't beat that. Free, you can't beat it, right?
What's your name?
My name is Mike Corrado. I should have said that, shouldn't I? All right. David, we're going to get ready to go, so. All right, we're going to close this out. How many people have enjoyed WPPI Day 1 so far? If you have missed any of the programs, we are reprogramming. We're going to run them on Nikon Live on the website, so you go back and watch them as many times as you want. But there is an expression, save the best for last, and for today, that's exactly what we're doing. These guys have been working out of Dallas. I got this off your website.
Okay.
Together since 2002, so they shoot around Dallas and specialize in destination weddings. I love this fact. You guys have shot over 150 weddings together since 2006. In case you didn't know that, it's on your website. It is. He knows that. All right. I got to tell you, it's a proud day when you can stand up on a stage for a gentleman who's won a Lifetime Achievement Award here at WPPI.
Yep.
The work is amazing. Their creative is amazing. Their print capabilities are amazing. Let me introduce the Nikon stage, David and Luke Edmondson.
Thank you. So my name is Luke Edmondson. It's a privilege to be here, and certainly thanks to Mike and to Nikon and all of you for coming here. Certainly thanks to those of you tuning in online. Special hello to the kids who I hope are watching, because Daddy's coming home soon and I can't wait to see you. And here's why that's special, because I obviously am this guy's son.
That's right. And
Yeah.
my name is David Edmondson, and I'm one of the few people that can say, Luke, I am your father.
No! Right? So our talk today is about the art of storytelling. And when we really think about what our opportunity is as a photographer, it's very much like anybody writing any other story, is it not? A good story might entertain us. It might motivate us. It might cause us to be inspired or to aspire. It might caution us. There's all sorts of different ways that we can weave a narrative together. And photographically speaking, this is where I started off in my childhood wonder. And what's special to me about this picture is what? My father took it. And what'd he take it on? He took it on a Nikon?
With a little Nikkormat camera.
That's right. And so here I am sitting on this tricycle, and I'll give you a quick backstory. For whatever reason, and I just learned this actually today, my father saved this tricycle out of a dumpster and gave it to me, but I didn't know. I was too young. But I always loved it. It was made out of aluminum. It was a bit sculptural in the way it came together. And so I said to myself, let's take it to college. It was just that little bit of childhood. Can you imagine what your childhood was like? Are there certain parts that you might want to go back and reminisce about, that moment where you're sitting here and you're just thinking about the places that we may go and the things that we may do? So I took that with me, not knowing what would happen. And one day I'm shooting a wedding, and who shows up? But my wife, because she comes up to me, she says, Luke, I don't even have any prospects right now, but someday when I get married, I want you to be my photographer. And I said to her, how can I do that if I'm the groom?
What?
Right? And so that's how I met my wife. And so we go forward from there, and we end up being pregnant, and we have these kids. We have a daughter named Holland, and she is fearless. She is so passionate about life. She jumps everywhere. She's not afraid of anything. And so I said, what is it that I might be able to create that would give a connection between herself and myself using the gifts and talents that we're endowed with as photographers? And so that's what this picture became right here. And there's a power to the way that this all comes together. It maintains that sense and element of wonder behind it. There's a beautiful triangular composition to it. All you have to do to make this type of shot is you simply project on the wall the shadow you want to do. You trace out the outline. You paint it in. That becomes the fixed element on the wall. You position things around. But what are the things that we positioned around? Well, in any photograph, don't we often talk about the fact that in some way it's reflective of the photographer themselves? For every picture we take, there's a part of us that's inside of it. Of course, in here, I literally inserted myself inside of it so that she had a connection back to her dad, knowing who it was that took the picture. And this is the principles that we try and believe in when it comes to the art of storytelling. Now, what you need to know, and I was very thankful for what Mike said, but my dad started as a wedding, or not a wedding photographer, but as a photographer back in the 70s.
Yes, I started in 1974, before 2/3 of you were even born. But I started out doing magazines, actually had 58 magazines that I shot concurrently. And anyway, it started a whole thing of shooting commercials, shooting CD covers for music labels, and shooting for annual reports.
And the thing that's special for us is that I represent the 3rd generation of Nikon photographers in our family. And so we have this lineage, and of course there you see me with that frog. And you then can be able to see what we do in terms of the annual reports and how you go about trying to create narratives to be able to sell ideas. You look at the classic wedding type photos that we might be expected to take and figuring out how can I find a vantage point or some perspective that adds something new. Then you go into even our portraiture. Now, are we portrait photographers? No. Who do we take portraits of? The people that we meet through the process. And this guy's in a band, he's a drummer. What would you say is the narrative that you're describing in this picture?
Well, he walks a tightrope because he's typically out on tour almost 200 days a year. So he's walking the tightrope. His son wants to be just like him, so he's got the drumsticks, little Levi. The umbrella is for the protection over his family, and little Stella wanted to, her mother said, I hope you could go into the arts, and so they put a little tutu around her, hoping that she would be a ballerina.
Yep. So we have things that we do like this, but how do you start adding storytelling? This came up this morning. A person was asking me, how do I start adding storytelling to something as simple as wedding photography? Well, in this particular case, I was aware of the fact that the groom's father was passed away. He was deceased. And what had he done? He'd written a letter. And it was basically, do not open until your wedding day. Well, as a photographer, you know this is going to be an emotional moment. So you figure out, how do you get the groomsmen over here? How do you get the father of the bride over here? How do you try and simplify the scene the best way you can? You find an angle, try and create something out of it. And so that's how you wind up with something like this, right? It's so powerful, and it's a connection, and it's something for him to reference back when he thinks about his own father. And in a similar way, let's say you're not having to deal with difficult subjects. Let's say that you're trying to look at something positive. Well, how many ring shots have we seen or have we done? It happens at every wedding. But what if Dad's idea was to go take all the rings from?
All the different women, the strong Texas women where we live, and go ahead and line them up so that we would have just one, the lineage of an entire family, the strong women. And so we did.
And so that's how this came about, right here, right? Because our job as photographers is to look for depth and narrative, right? You can take it from a sales aspect. It's really hard to get rid of something if all of a sudden there's more of an emotional connection and emotional story, right? They've got to have it in their album. They've got to get it as a print, right? And they buy into this idea. In a similar way, you can just look for things in nature. Now I'm going to show you a picture, and I want to ask, do you not see the obvious heart shape that's coming into it, right? The tree's already doing it for us. All we have to do is look at the framing. And there it is. All that said, this is representative of the work we were doing before we started taking, I say, more seriously, the storytelling aspect of what it is that we wanted to create almost as a legacy for future generations.
Absolutely. And here I am, a dad with 3 daughters, and what I had noticed is that I did not shoot a significant portrait of them in their youth.
Has anybody ever done that? Like, you take pictures of your family, but have you given them the full depths and talents of what it is that you really have to offer? Or do you have a hard time getting them to pose in front of your camera? Right? We all have a hard time.
Yeah. So anyway, one of my daughters was getting married in England, and she loves Pride and Prejudice. And so she wanted to do kind of a Pride and Prejudice type of shoot that would show them as young women before they matured a little bit more. And so I went ahead and found a bunch of parasols, found some shawls, and tried to make something that would be a beautiful portrait of.
And the thing about it is my sister was getting married in England, so you're trying to figure out what can I do that's rather simple. And so he did. He brought these things over. He brought the simple prop and created this photo. And all of a sudden, you have more of a storytelling narrative that's going on. Now, here's the thing. We're here celebrating this sister's wedding, and it's a very joyous time. What we didn't know is it was going to be the last portrait that we were able to get with this sister here, because she ended up getting her promotion. And so we look back on something like this, and we say to ourselves how precious it is that we now have this moment in time. My niece is standing over here. That's her mommy right there. The other thing that we didn't know is that when we got back from this, has anybody ever been told, like, I want to get into shape before, like, my kid's wedding or before some big event? That was you, was it not?
I did, but every time I wanted to lose a pound, I seemed to gain one.
Well, he would say things to me like, if round is the shape, I'm getting into shape, right? So here's the thing. We got back from that wedding. We sat down for just a minute in the studio. We take our test shots. Here's an example of what one of our test shots looked like. Looks like this. We're playing around. You know, let's just make sure the lighting's right. But here's what we didn't know at that time. This is the last portrait I took of my father before his stroke. The next day I came in, and like in our house, the coffee's always made. Like that's one of his loves. The coffee's always made. And I came in that day and the coffee wasn't made. Well, that was odd. So I went ahead and went to the coffee pot. I made the coffee. I hit the button. I went to my desk. I had kind of called out for him, didn't hear him anywhere. And so then I went and looked at his desk. He wasn't there. I figured he was gone, but his car was there. But okay, he just went somewhere. So then when the coffee was done, what's that, 5-10 minutes? Went downstairs, got my coffee, came back in, looked inside of his bedroom because we work out of our home. He's not in his bed. Went ahead and took the time to go look in his bathroom, and there he was. He couldn't move, he couldn't speak. And so how precious is that type photo to me in this particular context?
And I feel blessed. I couldn't move my hand. Every bit of Photoshop that I had thought about, I didn't know how to go back and do it as I was trying to experience recovery.
Yep.
Just everything was forgotten, and I had to relearn everything again. One night, some blood clots went into my eyes, and I became blind in both eyes.
And you think as a photographer, like, what's the one thing I value more than anything else? But it's my eyes.
I'm left eye dominant, and the next morning I got sight back into my left eye, and I was so thankful. I saw the world so different. And so for me, I was trying new textures, new things, how I saw the world differently.
And of course, one of the things that happens is whenever somebody that you love or somebody that you're close to goes through a significant event, it can't help but shape and change your world as well, right? That's part of what happens. So the next series of images was where we were both having to work through a process of rediscovering not only who he was, thankful for the fact he was here, but at the same time going, okay, what is our new life like? We're going to have to change. We're going to have to shift in some particular way. So this is one of the first pictures that we took at that particular point, and you can kind of see we've got some scratchiness. We're trying to do some stuff. We're trying to relearn, and you were seen very much in black and white in the way you were thinking.
Very, very much so. Also, my daughter that got married in England lives in Rome, Italy. And here we are with the loss of my daughter in heaven. And she said, I would love to have a portrait of Elaine's daughter, Tyler, but I would love to have the family showing their love, that we have her back. And so all of a sudden we decided to build kind of like Mr. Darcy's study, and that her aunt flew into town to hold her back, and my daughter Sarah couldn't fly in for Rome, so she asked if we could maybe have a painting put up on the wall for her since she couldn't make it, and kind of do this new series of photos that would tell about the love of our family.
So we decided to build this set and shoot this shot and really get into this process of saying, let's start making photos with more intentionality. We're doing them for our own purposes. We're doing them for our family at this point. And so it looks something like this. And now all of a sudden you can see how it's coming together, where we have my beautiful niece Tyler, my sister Lauren.
Yeah.
There's representations of the sunflowers, the fact we love to travel.
Yeah, we love travel, we love music. Her telescope's down because she knows where her mother is. Her aunts have her back. Have a love for God. We have a Bible here. Again, music. Sunflowers because Van Gogh.
To the light.
Because sunflowers follow light.
And then we have the other sculptural elements as well because we love art. So when we were creating this, we were teaching a class, And the class was basically, how do we bust all of your excuses? Because everybody says, well, yeah, that's easy for you, but it's not for me. Or you must have this, or you must have that.
You have all the equipment.
You have all the equipment. And of course, the only thing that stops you from your creativity is yourself. We're all self-limited in this process. If you want to be creative, it consists of two main things. It's self-discipline and it's structure. Those are the pedals that fuel creativity. That's why print competition is so important, because it sets a date that you have to have a deliverable by. And so for the purposes of the example, to see how we built this thing, we ended up using about 15 lights. We bought them off eBay. It was about $300. So it was basically to say, you have no more excuse. Built it in a ballroom. These are just vinyl skins. And the one thing I would tell you, if you're ever building sets like this, if you want to have that dimensionality to be able to see back inside of here, you've got to cheat this out just a little bit so you get the dimension as you shoot through that window. You see how that works?
Yep.
To make sure we give you that visual?
But you know, people, when they tell excuses, they go, you have a beautiful fashion gown.
That's right. Well, what about that? I must need costumes, or I need something else, some other piece of equipment standing in my way from going out and creating. So we went ahead, and this was something we were inspired by Bambi Cantrell. I had seen her build off of this idea. So we went to Home Depot, and we simply said, let's just get some wire mesh, and let's build the dress, and go to Hobby Lobby and get some things.
That is for your screen window.
And so you create something along those lines. Now, at this point, we started showing this stuff to our clients, and they started to say, hey, we'd love it if you could do some of these things for ourselves. And the thing to keep in mind is, in the context of Dad having his stroke, the things he still remembered was everything from the 70s, 80s, and 90s before digital, when you had to build a physical set. You had to, if you were going to do a shoot, you had to recreate the world. You had to light the shot, you had to shoot the shot, and then it had to be sacred until the film came back and you got a sign off from the art director. This is how it worked. You couldn't do things in post in the same type way. And so we ended up starting to do the things for our clients. This was for a bridal portrait for a bride. You were also beginning to study the painters.
I was. I had studied art history in college. I can't remember a thing, and I didn't take drugs, but I could not remember. So I started a self-study, and while I was doing that, one of the artists that I really wanted to study was Caravaggio. And so I really wanted to go ahead, and after you study them, I'd always try to do a tribute piece to the person that I was studying. And this bride came in and said, I would love to be part of that scene for my bridal portrait. And because I love music, maybe we could build a little Caravaggio set.
Yep, and is this Caravaggio, or is this more going to be Vermeer to you?
Sorry, that's Vermeer.
That's what I thought. So anyways, building this Vermeer, playing off the asymmetry. Now, Vermeer was typically associated with light coming from the left-hand window, but you still get a sense of how the elements are starting to be presented in front of us. And this is the key thing. A picture by its mere arrangement must make us look at it. We always talk about this abstract idea called impact. Well, what is impact? And people often say, what's the emotional response that you have and so forth? Well, I'm not here to define it for you, but I've defined it for myself. I've gone through the process of researching, and I recognize for myself at this point that impact occurs before you even know what something is or even how you feel about it. Not only is impact the initial response, it is also the climax. It is pervasive through the entire thing. What happens is, the first thing you do is you look at this picture. And after you look, you start to see. And after you start to see, the question is, do you start to enjoy? Because if I can reward you for participating and looking at my pictures, well, now I'm on to something.
So
and many of us...
Yes, she loves to play the violin. She doesn't have music. Do you know why? Her love story for her fiancé is memorized in her heart. So she didn't want music. She has a love for art. If anybody has studied the 15th century painters, if you have a dog in the photo, that means chastity. The gift she was giving her husband on her wedding night was actually her virginity. And this is what she wanted to portray in this scene.
Now, if you're like me and you start saying, I want to start doing more creative stuff like this, and you're married, then your spouse may say something to you along the lines of this, and I'm just paraphrasing, don't take this word for word, but can we just take a normal picture? Can I just take a picture like all of my friends? You know, one where we just go outside in the soft sun at 1:4 with some post-processing that we're not even sure about color balance? Because that's what I see on everybody else's. So instead, I asked my wife, can we come to a picture like this? And so this is my daughter here when she was first born, and my beautiful wife, Bethany. And of course, she's giving her the bath and doing things along these lines. But what you need to understand within the context of all of this is, what kind of space do we have? We got rid of our 3,000-foot studio. We don't have that anymore. We do all of this over a 2-car garage. And when we need more space, what do? We go out the window and we shoot back in because we're visual problem solvers, are we not? That's how you make it work. And of course, you can kind of see too, if you're interested in lighting, a lot of times we'll stack lighting so that we can get some different looks. That way we're able to get a light going through the window, be able to have that light on the wall, but then be able to do the broad lighting for there. So, what about if we were to try and create a different version of this shot? Well, we might come in and we might start doing something more along these lines. And the meaning behind this particular picture to you, Dad?
Well, you know, Vermeer had about 32 paintings that he did, and almost every one was in this one same room. And I really wanted to see how many images I could do in one room with different looks. So this is actually the same bride after she got married, again with her violin, and I was just really trying to do a last Vermeer.
Yep. So a lot of times people say, okay, great, can we see some more behind the scenes of how we're doing this? When we're building our bigger sets, sometimes we do them in ballrooms. You might see how we bring it all together. It's really simple. You can just go out there and get insulation, or you can actually get plywood, whatever it is you want. Just make sure it's secure, and it just has to look good to camera. And then you find some old windows and different pieces.
Yeah. And again, for me, one thing being older, I really enjoyed shooting single capture. In fact, I wanted to teach that, and I have absolutely nothing. I love composites too, but I just think it's good to actually learn how to do both. And so
there's a challenge, a degree of difficulty to say, can I get it to where all the post-production work I'm going to do on the back end is corrective in nature? It's not completion of the idea. One is not better than the other. It's just our personal bent about how we go about doing it. So that's why we do most of our time in pre-production than we spend it in post-production. So you build something like that, and you wind up with the classic Vermeer shot that goes along the lines of this. Now, the better question if we're going to do storytelling is, where do ideas come from? One way of looking at ideas is, I want to go ahead and create the Star Wars universe. I want to create Harry Potter. I want to create Lord of the Rings. In which case, I have to come up with all these wonderful narratives I have to weave together. I have to figure out what the environment is and so forth. And it takes a lot of energy and investment. Or you can just start with the things that are already going on in your life, in your world, that you already can paint the picture completely. You know the colors, the textures, the sights, the smells, the taste, all of those things that make it so that it's just perfectly formed in your mind to go out and represent it. And that's where we'll sit down, and it begins with a series of just drawing sketches. And you might have how many sketches at a particular session?
I could think of maybe 10 sketches every night, things that are just going through my head. And I sketch them only where I can know what they are, and then I literally percolate on them for a little bit and see which one kind of rises to the top.
So that percolation process is, you're not actively thinking about it. It's the subconscious and the conscious working together to go, which one, for whatever reason, am I leaning towards, is resonating? And when that happens, then all of a sudden you might do a bit more of a sketch to try and make it, again, more fully formed in your mind and imagine it, how you're going to put it together. From there, you might take it and you might start casting people and putting names down. You might do some little lighting type things. Like, this is not how he did the lighting. This is just kind of the representative moment where you're thinking about the lighting. How am I going to go about creating this thing, working within the confines that I have? The fact that we have a two-story, or the second floor of the car garage, it means that we have boundaries. So how are we going to make this happen? And so
I did not want to go out that window. So we figured out, let's turn the set sideways and just go out the hallway.
So you wind up with a blueprint, something that you can finally get to the place where you're like, okay, I've done my visual problem solving, I've figured out how I'm going to do my composition, I've figured out how I'm going to do my arrangements. You then just come in and start building the set over your garage, and you build that little space. Then you've got to style the space, you've got to prop the space. One of the things that we find is really great is some minimum wage workers that we have on hand. They always look exactly where you want them to go. They never turn their head. They never need breaks, right? They're the perfect things. And so you do something along these lines.
Yeah, typically I will go ahead and put all the mannequins in place and light the mannequins exactly where I want to put my models, so that when my models walk in, I have them set, and 10 minutes later, I have them off the set.
Yep. And so you go from a moment like this to then the finished version. And you see how it comes together?
Anybody know Tony Corbell?
Yep. Yep. I mean, if Tony lives in your city, you say, oh, come in and I want to cast you, you know? So, and there's meaning behind this particular narrative. Now, for David, he had lost his voice to some degree after his stroke. And so this was very healing for him to go through this process.
This is me creating my voice, repairing my voice, fine-tuning my voice, and doing an inspection of my voice, because I believe that every one of us has a voice in this world that should be called out to have influence on others.
And what's really interesting here is you go, is complexity better? Is that what makes a compelling photograph? Is simplicity better? Is that what makes a better photograph? It really doesn't matter as long as you can do one thing. And this is what Plato taught his students when he was asked about composition. And it's so simple. Find and represent variety within unity. Too much variety and you lose the cohesion. Too much unity and it becomes boring. And so you look through something like this and there's a wonderful variety in what your eye gets to wander through. We build in intentional spaces for you to slow down as you observe it. But at the same time, there's never a point where your eye comes to a complete stop, because that's a visual obstacle. The next thing that we sometimes do is we'll just have challenges with each other. Let's bring in a person, let's bring in a model, let's practice an idea. We were looking at Rembrandt at this point, and in the course of 1 hour, let's set a timer, let's see what we can get done in that time. And so that's what, go ahead.
Well, I met this man that I would have never talked to in my life. We just didn't connect. I heard he had been in prison quite a bit. Come to find out, he had been abused by his family, and we made a connection. And I actually asked him if he would come over and model, because he had this wonderful kind of a Rembrandt type of beard, and he was amazing. But I said, Luke, let's build speed. Let's see what we can do in 1 hour's time.
So here's what we did. We did a shot like this. We did a shot like this. And we did a shot like this. And so you just pull it all together to test yourself, because, you know, I chafe a little bit at the professional photographers that say that I don't pick up my camera unless I'm getting paid. That sounds really good if you're on a stage like this or in some sort of environment like this, but we should be practicing. That's what we should be doing. We should be go out there pushing ourselves, challenging ourselves.
Yeah. And this is a story I wanted to tell my family. All these images also have stories for them. This smoke is like our time, what would you call it? Just our
life is like a vapor.
Yes.
Yes.
And so be careful with your time.
Yep.
It's important to have pleasure, but it just goes so quickly.
So then we got into American realism as we're moving through different painters and different time periods. So here's the shot that we did of Hopper. Now there's an intrinsic message within here. The man is more enamored with the picture than he is with the beautiful woman that's sitting there waiting. This is how it looked from behind the scenes. This is how it actually came out in the camera.
Again, another story I want to tell my children. Here's this man, he's come home. She's written on the mirror, "I'm waiting." But instead of going to see his wife, he actually has a little erection here.
I've never noticed this, but he points it out every time.
Because he's more enamored with a piece of paper than he is with his bride sitting here. And that's important that I want to tell both the men in my family and the women.
And with my niece, there's things that we want to pass on to her. Not only we showed her the picture of how much she's loved by her family, but also how you prepare for transitions. Because she was growing from the age 13 to getting to 18, 19, getting ready to go off to college. And so this became a series playing off of Degas. And so you have something like this where you're going behind the set. One of the keys, if you're into our type of lighting, is a lot of times we'll use reverse key lighting. We put the light behind the person, the main light. We then kick it back in, but it also serves as the hair separation or whatever you want to call that particular light, the rim light, let's say. And so you take a shot like that, and it looks like this.
And not that it's a big deal, but That's my granddaughter.
That's right. So would y'all like to see a quick 2-minute video just of what it's like for us when we're shooting? Here we go. So you get the idea. If you want to see what it looks like when it's finished, it looks like this. It's a beautiful shot. It's behind the scenes. She's getting ready to go on the final stages of life and go out there and become the prima ballerina herself. And so we reached a point where we said, okay, if we're doing these things, if we're dealing with the painters, at some point we have to deal with the subject of nudity. It needs to be addressed as an artist. And so in the Degas spirit, you practice things with the bathers and the awkward posing. You might then get into something like this right here.
Maxfield Parrish. I was studying Maxfield Parrish and his blues and decided to kind of go with that type of imagery. And then I all of a sudden kind of went in from that. I had a love for Hopper and kind of the whole 1940s, which started a whole new kind of vibe.
And so from there, we went in, we brought my wife in again, because what's more fun than bringing the person who would like to take a normal picture to do a picture like this? And she's an ER nurse. And so here I am in my boxers with a Life magazine that's from the time period that was, the article was on nurses. Here's my young daughter, and she's beginning to grow up, and she's doing her thing. And then we even start referencing our own art within our own art, right? Because why not? It's your pictures. But so you have something like this.
But here she is pregnant in the hot Texas sun, and it's just so fun to have a vintage fan and to make her feel like, how miserable can I be being pregnant?
And so we then deal with sometimes topical issues. What do you do with, you know, there's an old saying, you know, if you want to kill a man once, you know,
you murder them.
him.
But if you want to kill them every day, slander them. And so it so bothered me when I heard of people getting slandered, especially in social media. I wanted to do a thing about getting wounded every day by gossip and slander.
And we continue to grow, we continue to evolve as artists, and so of course you need to at some point get into surrealism. And what does that look like? And so you now end up winding up with things like this. And along this point in time is when we finally said it's appropriate for us to go back and look at some of the photographers from the past. We've looked at the artists. Now, what about some photographers? And that's when we came across this guy. And basically, all you need to know about this picture is up until then, he had been the rock star of his day, but had not had any success from his colleagues and peers. And this was the picture that went off the charts for him. And he said to himself, I want to figure out why. Why is this? Why did this picture? And so he ended up looking at things like, what are the arrangements, the psychological responses that people have? Why is it that we use the diagonal? Why is the triangle so effective? Why is the dominant mass so effective? Why is it that we have the snake or the S-curves that are so effective? And the ultimate reason is because they arrest us. They grab our attention. They make us look. And he wrote a book on it, and it's called The Command to Look. It's by William Mortensen. It was written about 1938, somewhere around there. And then he continued throughout this to also define themes that he observed in photography that seemed to work. And those are, you have sex/beauty as one. The second is sentiment. So that's the humble life, that is children photos, that's pictures of dogs, that's patriotic type pictures. And then the third one like this, that is wonder, that which horrifies us, frightens us, or is mysterious to us. That first picture I showed you of my daughter on the childhood tricycle had a sense of wonder behind it. That was the psychological device that I was leveraging in order to make that work. And in the 1970s, a guy named Jerry Interval, who was a PPA photographer, came along and started trying to figure out how he was going to take that and put the emotional and the feelings on a wheel, so to speak, like we have our color wheel, which Dixie just showed us. And it's so valuable. And we start to see how things can play off of each other. And so now the question becomes, can we start implementing our head knowledge and turn it into reality? And I had come across some people that were clowns at the local mall, and I basically looked at them and I said, you guys are remarkable, like you're emoting on a world-class level. Why are you at the local mall? And what I came to discover is they used to be the head of Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, and they were in charge of the clown college. But the circus is over. And so they had moved back to Dallas, Texas. And so this is representing the idea of what it's like to be in a relationship. Because just because you're talking doesn't mean that, or just because I'm talking doesn't mean you're listening. And sometimes it goes in one ear and out the other, right? Now, I told you that my wife was hesitant to take photos with me, especially when I said I want to do some sort of big idea. Well, sometimes the best gift we can ever give our spouse is to give them the gift of the thing that maybe we didn't know that we needed to be giving to them, right? And when I came to her with this idea for us to do our own clown idea, she didn't fight it. She said, yes, I'm in. So we started with this, right? So here I am. Here's my beautiful wife. She said it was very awkward driving home with the clown face paint, but it was all about we need to create something. It's a death-defying knife act. We need to create that element of mystery within the picture. And then from there, we created this, and the title of this one is called Daddy Died Laughing. It's perfect, right? We don't know why I'm gone, but there they are. So here's us in our good times, and now here's in our bad times. But what you may or may not realize is we're replicating my jacket on her there. We're taking the same thing from here and putting it here with my daughter, and you start tying all these visual elements together, and this is the art of storytelling within a pictorial narrative. In a similar way, the thing that I'd encourage you to do is, too often as photographers, we shoot what I like to call nouns. It's just obvious. You know exactly what the picture is. The picture is a thing at that particular point. What if we went out to try and shoot verbs and adjectives? So I'm going to show you this next picture and say the title of it is Pompous. Okay? Do you get a sense of him being pompous, right? It's no longer a portrait of this man. It's a portrait of an idea. Okay? And you've got that feeling. And it's also playing off of El Greco, who used to do elongation of the torso. And you've got just enough accoutrements that give him a false sense of being regal. You've got the sense of the staff and so forth. And then you've got this wonderful finger that's pointing back this way. We also play off of ideas with each other. This is one that I did with my dad. So here he is, and he's got the French maid. We do all the dirty work, and he's calling the hotel guide to see if he can get her sent up. And this is what he received. Missed expectations. We've all been there. Or then you might have something playing off of color theory. Dixie was talking about color theory. And one of the things that she does rather effectively is she does complementary colors. Complementary colors are really great when you work with just foreground and middle ground, or foreground and background, just with two different layers. When you start getting much more multidimensional, then you can be more sophisticated with it, and you can do what's called dual complementary color, which looks like this, okay? Because there's three things we can use to be able to create impact in a picture. We can use color, we can use value, and we can use our composition. And when you put those things together, now all of a sudden you can grab people's attention and get them, in a sense, command them to look and be able to enjoy what it is that they see there. And you can see how we do the repetition of the warm to the cool, and then we bring that back here, and we've got the golds and the reds. And so the blues and the yellows and the way that they're coming along. Do we do this with our clients? Absolutely we do. So a family wanted a picture. Well, we found out what the values were for that family. It looks a lot like this, okay? The sons, he always tried to teach them strategy. So now you go ahead and give them a chess set. The values of the mothers and the way that they love on the little children's. Then you bring the paternal figure back into the front here, but we only get to see the back of them. It's as if, what if Monet was painting a picture of his own family? And of course, you take the dangerous risk of saying, I want to place one of my subjects in bright sunlight, and now I have to put the rest in shade. And which part do you light? Which part do you not light? And you just figure it out.
Well, it's a combination of dark, light, dark, light, dark, and
light.
the repeating of rhythms.
Yep. And so when we learn about the principles of art and design, then all of a sudden we realize that the alternation is where we gain strength. It's why in music you might have loud, quiet, loud. The loud is louder in relation to the quiet. Without it, then it's just kind of an equal amount of noise. And then we go into the studio and we might create something like this that's a thematic type idea. And so it's all about trying to come from darkness into light. We might play off of it in a different way. And of course, we've got different visual elements using the same set, just repurposed. And as we run to the conclusion here, if you want to know more about us, or if you want to be able to connect with us, the way you would do that would be to go to here, and we're basically at Luke Edmondson or at David Edmondson. But none of our talks would be complete if we don't add this important point. And that is this. Here is Caravaggio's Calling of St. Matthew. The reason why it's important is because my sister in Rome lives about 3 blocks away. And while we talked about some of the adversity we've gone through as a family, it's no different than anybody else. It's entirely predictable you're going to face adversity at some point in time. The question is, what do we do at that point? And so in this particular case, you were asked to take a picture of a family that was a particularly challenging one for you.
It was right after my daughter died. And they called me and said he had about a week to live. Would I like to visit him? But I just could not emotionally take myself there to go do it.
And then you did.
After I regained my composure, I actually called the family in, built a Caravaggio scene like the Calling of St. Matthew.
And that's this. So here's the thing that we would say to you if you want to know nothing else about the Edmondson is this. We believe that our calling in life is to love on others and have influence in their lives. And our excuse is that we have a camera.
And
our hope
Nikon
to
camera.
you, what?
A Nikon camera.
Well, a Nikon camera would be even better.
And
that's what we shoot with.
Let me just finish with one more second.
Yep.
Tyler back here is our 4th generation of Nikon shooters in our family.
There you go. I love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for having us. Go
Ladies
out
and
there and
gentlemen,
create
the
great pictures.
Edmondsons.
Thank you.
Way to close out day 1. Come back tomorrow. We got more presentations throughout the entire day. Again, if you haven't seen anything, pick up the printed schedule.